Okay, perfect. So the first thing I'll walk through is our marketplace. This is how we would book a training if we were a customer. So the first thing, and similar to what you see here, is I've already logged in and I've gone in to explore our catalog, and I would browse the available scenarios. Don't pay attention to any of the pricing. Customers don't have pricing. They would have named users who can access any training anytime, however many times that they need to. So key takeaways from the catalog would be that we can filter based off nice work role. So we map all of our scenarios to the nice work role and actually map them all the way down to the individual role cases. So you can track who has coverage where, etc. Type of training I want to run. Do I want to run a defense or offensive training? How hard? Maybe I only have a specific amount of time that I could allocate for these individuals. I could select that as well. Do I want to just run Checkpoint or a certain firewall or some vendor? Pretty much every scenario is mapped to the major product vendors, with the exception of things like some of the open source tools. Not every single network is mapped to those. And then properties, kind of consider this the format you might run it in. Do I want to run an individual self-training, a team guided, or a team self? For the most part, you can mix and match these and get every scenario, with the exception of a few really, really difficult ones where we recommend a guided, someone to guide you. And that's something that Cyberbit can do, or your partner, etc. The booking process is pretty straightforward. I would essentially select a scenario. I would say book now. First thing I'm going to do is pick the network type I want. Let's say I want to run the Splunk network, and just since it's easy, I'll pick this open space here so we can see. I would add existing trainees for my organization by name. So I would have named users I pick from. And then there are some account types where you might want to have the ability for one-time trainees, and I could just toggle this over, and then it will create 5 random user logins just for one single use at this time block. And I've already set one up over here where we'll do it with a named user. I have 2 modes as well, training mode or a test mode. Training mode is more learning focused, where test is more skills validation focused. Test mode is going to not have a lot of options to check their answers or where they're at, where training will. So check me now buttons available in training mode, as well as multiple choice drop downs for the steps that they're in. And we'll take a look at what this looks like in just a second. I may add a description if I need, and then select book now. One thing I want to show everyone before we jump into the range itself is that we also have this MITRE attack framework as well. So if you can see here, I have the ability to filter on all trainees, or I could drop down and select a specific individual. I pick trainee 2433. And now I can just focus on, hey, this person needs to focus on specific areas so that they get exposure to the parts of the kill chain that we need them to based off their role, their work role within NICE. And this is just a general overall view of the organization. I can hover over the areas I need to focus on and see who needs to do what and how well folks have done that have already taken the training, as an example. Next will be the Range training platform itself. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as a one-time user. I've got a training waiting for me. So I'm going to go ahead and select Join Now. We have an ability for our first, if it's your first time in the Range, to do watch video. And I'll try to make this a little bigger too. Think of the watch video, it's like a tour guide of the interface and the platform that's in video format. You can always pull these videos up at a later date just by selecting this link here. And it's videos that walks you through all the different sections and stages within the platform. So I'll select Next. About the exercise is just going to describe to the trainee the type of network they're in, what they need to be on the lookout for, remind them that this is a live environment and that they're going to have tools available to them in the environment through a share. So I'm going to go ahead and select Next here so we can get to the good stuff. This is our network Visio. So this particular network that I'm running today is running Palo Alto and QRadar as the firewall. We've got a Palo, we've got a QRadar. This is meant to look like and feel like a real enterprise environment, or I would say more traditionally a mid-sized organization environment. But in line with the internet segment, we have a Snort IPS. In the DMZ, we have a number of web servers here. So this organization hosts 5 web servers. We have a DNS server and a mail relay. Our inside firewall has the internal web segment, the server segment. Xenos is a network monitoring tool. If you've never heard of Xenos, think SolarWinds, something that's monitoring the servers are up, as well as the individual service state on those systems as well. McAfee EPO, endpoint management tool. Other systems, domain controller, DHP server, Centrify an identity bridge, a file server, stuff you'd hope is probably in most organizations. Next, we have a SIM segment. So we do have a segment just dedicated for the SIM use. User segment, Ubuntu, Win 7 and 10. The database segment, MySQL and MS SQL. And we like to point out that this network, how someone accesses the training, because there's a lot of value in knowing this. And the reason is this is a live environment. So if I, as a trainee who sits in the VPN segment, fails to log into a system or puts the wrong user password combination in, I might do it enough times to generate an alert in the SIM. So it's valuable for me to know where I'm training from, so that if I see things from 110.x, it's not a part of the scenario. It's a mistake that I've made, and something that could happen definitely in the real world as well. So once we're comfortable with this, we'll log into the system, and then we'll go from there. Just really quickly want to highlight 2 more tabs here. Network info. So you have all these devices on this list or on this Visio. You need to know how to log into them, and that's what the network info guide is for. Here's my Palo Alto admin password, and then QRadar root admin. These are command line logins. And then if you look here in the management tools column, I can see the IP address to log into the UI, click see credentials, and then I can also see the credentials for the UI. And these little double pieces of paper is the copy function. So I can copy right from within this and paste and go. Next is tools. Tools for right now, we've just been focusing on the core technology, but think of this as maybe you don't have an out-of-the-box network for the cloud that meets or is exactly like your environment. You have QRadar as the SIM, but maybe you have a different firewall. But you would prefer to have the familiar SIM versus the familiar firewall. What we hope to do, I guess, in these videos is to give you a short video that's specifically focused on helping anyone in the platform know where to go once they log in, go to the right section of the product, and access the logs to get the value from those logs to move forward. We're not teaching you how to use those products real in depth, but we do give you enough information on how to be successful with them should you not have a ton of experience with them. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is hover over this and select Open Simulated Network. And I choose the web browser connection, which doesn't require me to do anything special other than just RDP right into the system. And now I've logged into my trainee box, which is sitting in that VPN segment. So now that I'm logged in, I'm going to select next, and now I'm going to move to my mission. My mission is to analyze the logs and alerts and the tools that I have and build a plan to go forward. Once I get information, I'll add these findings to the system. And you'll see here when I select add findings, I already have clues as to what the system will be looking for. Should drop down. There we go. So as you can see here, we have a number of things that we're looking for. And I can use these as clues, as things, all right, I need to be on the lookout for stuff like this. Obviously, we only have, let's see how many were there. 5. So we're obviously not going to need them to find all of these since we're only looking for 5, but there is some information here. So the first thing that I do, and we always recommend when we're introducing folks to the platform, is to get in the mindset of pulling up at least 3 tools every single time you train. And so when I select network info or network map from within the VM that I'm in, it'll expand this training application into a much larger view. Now, out of habit, I have just gotten into the habit of doing this, where I actually just stretch it across the screen. And that way, when I open Chrome, I can just always toggle easily between the two. The first thing that I want to do is log into my Palo Alto firewall. So I'll go to Management Tools. I'm going to hit Copy, Paste, and Go. Next, I want to get into my QRadar. So I'm going to copy that. And I want to log into Xenos. Copy that. Perfect. And I think, yeah, all of these are going to share the same admin and password. So I'll copy the password. Oops. And just log in once. Okay, so I'm getting logged into my firewall. Here's my SIM. Go ahead and look at if I have any alerts that have fired in the QRadar. And it does look like I do. It's false positive. Here I can see my first alert is a port scan on an outside address space in my environment from an Israeli IP. Next is a brute force. Logically, if you're a network guy, you may make the connection here. A lot of times when you see that fourth octet matches, it's typically, if you can do it, a lot of times these actually are the same system. You'll go into the firewall, you'll look at the net roll, and you'll see that 132.1.21 maps to a system in the DMZ with a .21 address as well. In our environment, we do it like that because that's how most folks would set that up. Not everybody makes that connection, and there's a way to figure this out in multiple ways, and I can show that as well. Other thing I'm going to look at just really quickly is I like to just look at all my dashboards really quick. I can actually see that I have an issue with this Apache server right now, and I don't know what it is, so we'll select it, and we'll see that we have an IP service down, and it looks like the web service is down on this system, which is not good, right? We can go back to here and take a look at what does this Fox do specifically, and I can see that .21 actually is foxnews.com. So we host that website here in our environment, and it's actively down. So based off what I know so far, it's always good practice to kind of go back and check what questions can I answer at this point. I know I have a port scan. I saw that first alert to 121. I'm going to check that, and perfect. So that check button is what's only available in this specific mode, this training mode. I also saw a password guessing. Was this login successful? Now that I don't know. I do know that the target was 172.16.121. So I need to focus on some information. I need to kind of scope around this. So probably want to look at these events, which is going to just pop me into all of the events that created this alert. But what I'll end up doing is clearing this filter and then I'll start to filter out noise so that I can look around the system. What I probably should do first, though, do this a different way. Source IP is, now clear this filter. Here we go. We have 2 successful logins at least. So not good. I think different teams do things differently. I've been working with SIMs since before SIMs were popular. So I have a lot of ways in which I can just interface with them and do things easily. That may not be the case for every team. And so this isn't just the only way I could find a successful login, right? I could also, if I'm not really good in the SIM, the idea here is to build the soft skills or give them that opportunity to develop these skills. Maybe we want them to focus on using the SIM per se, but maybe we want them to do something as fast as possible. And a lot of times that's traditionally what we pay really good money for in people, is that I have all the login information that I need for every system in this environment, right? So if I wanted to look at my Apache systems, 100.21 is this DMZ Apache 1, I could just putty into it, right? And so what I'll do is I'll cat the auth log really quickly and see if I can capture the information that I need really easily. And here we go. This is the log data ultimately that's being sent to the SIM anyways. So you can always go to the source and get the information that you need as well. So obviously I can answer my question now, which is the login, or was there a successful login? The answer is yes, that technically there were two. What else can I answer? Well, if we think about it, we already saw something that's of interest. We know we have a service that's down. I'm not sure if that's a question, but I might check anyways. We have a service that's been shut down. It's the HTTP service. Does it shut down continuously? I'm not sure, honestly, right? But I do see here it says what triggers it. So I'm going to assume that since there's another question, it's probably a yes, but I need to figure out what it is. These are clues, right? Depending on the technical aptitude of the person who's doing this, they may see one of these specifically and think, ooh, I know exactly where to go look to validate whether it is or isn't that. Or based off this, they may think, well, maybe there's an error with the service or something like that, if it's a wrong service configuration or something. So, depending on how the folks operate, I would probably, even me personally, even if I thought it was something, always try to bring the service up and see if it goes back down. So now I've brought it up, what I can do, right, is do a status on it. And it appears to be running. Let's see if we can get to our site. Would have expected it to load a lot quicker than that, especially if we're hosting it internally. Okay, so it's not running. Well, that's not great. I know that I just, at this time, which the range and the time is in UTC at 4:47, tried to bring my service up and it came down. So let me look at my error log. Well, at 4:47, literally the same minute, I can detect here that I caught a sigterm command. So that to me is saying, all right, something is configured very much like in Windows, like a scheduled task, to shut this service down. In the Linux world, we don't use the term scheduled task. We would actually say there is a cron tab configured with a cron job. And so for me, I would say, okay, cron tab -L for list any active jobs. And here I can see I not only have a stop command, I actually have a bash script that's running from temp. So not good. But let's go ahead and finish answering this question before we jump into any of that. Let's check it. and submit. Perfect. So I immediately am going to want to know, what is this this bash here? Oh, okay. So not great. It's made a directory in temp called BD. It's copying the user password hashes. So basically the usernames and the password hashes to a directory in temp, a newly created temp directory of BD. And then it uses a Python script from an PHP uploader in temp to move those files off network technically. So not great. So let's see what other questions we have available here. I know that I just found, I found a file, right? I found a file that's called, what is the full path of the file? Temp bd_bash.sh. It's a bash script, and its purpose is to exfil. Perfect. I always get nervous like I'm going to get one of these wrong. You do it enough, you start to second guess yourself. And I also found a Python, right? So select Python script. It's actually located in temp. What is the name of the script? I'll take this opportunity to show you how to copy and paste. So this is long. I probably wouldn't want to type this out, so I can copy it, right? As soon as you let off the left click in Putty, it's copied automatically. I come here to this paste your text here option and click paste, select the plus sign. And then now here in this, I have a clipboard option. I can copy this clipboard and paste it locally. It's kind of a cool little trick. Which file was used by the attacker? That would be the bd_bash.sh. Perfect. So now we've found all of the elements of the attack. We've detected, and now we've analyzed enough of the data to be confident that we fully understand what our issues are with this system, what happened. Obviously, most likely, Metasploit ran against our environment with a port scanner. It got a hit on SSH. They mounted SSH with a file that did user password combinations, brute forced, and eventually got a hit. Once they got a hit, they created 2 sessions. The first hit was probably when Metasploit made the success. Second connect, a successful login, was probably when they manually just created with something like a putty and moved those backdoor files over and wrote the crons for the stop command and the execution of the bash. So now what we need to do is we need to create a response process. And we're looking in this scenario for 6 responses specifically. If it was me and it was my environment, we have to kind of understand that we can't think of everything, and we want these scenarios to be done in a certain time frame to accomplish stuff. So we are only looking for some of what could be tons of options, I guess, to do things. So the first thing that I would do as a person in my environment would be, if you really think about this attack, what's the problem with this? If you look at the first couple of steps in this attack, it's that the attacker can SSH to a system in your DMZ with no control. I mean, they can do it without any limitation. And that's definitely not good. So you have a misconfiguration in your firewall, most likely. I mean, even if you have to have this allowed, it should be locked down for sure. So I can just look at all my firewall policies for SSH, and I can immediately see right here, internet to DMZ external, meaning that external address space. And right here, boom, I have SSH. So for me, I'm going to remove that because it's already proved to me to be incredibly bad. I'm going to immediately commit this. I'll probably call my Linux guy, or I'll go over here and I'll actually kill the session that they have established right now. But then I'm also going to come in here and write block attacker, right? So my source can be any. My destination will be any. And then I'm going to write it to 199.203.100.169. Was it 100, 189?
So just a question from my side, Mark. Would you consider this a blue team or a red team?
This would be a blue team exercise, right? Because we're evaluating the attack and we're creating the defense measures and or trying to prevent from any further damage. Okay. On the red team side, we would actually give somebody a Kali Linux box with Metasploit and Interpreter and tools like that and put them in an environment that they can be the attacker. They would have the ability to run Metasploit against the network, see the port open. We're not going to do the attack for them. We want them to show us that they can do it.
No.
So I'm going to commit these, and I won't walk through every single detail. There's other things I would have done in the firewall, but I just want to prove out some of these theories. For the cron stuff, obviously, let's assume we've moved everything off this box for forensic value. We're done with that. This isn't a scenario where we really need to format it. It's a simple fix, luckily, but we need to do a cron tab space -R for remove. You only would do the -R if all the jobs were something that you didn't want. You would do a -E if you wanted to just remove specific ones. -E would be edit the file itself or the cron configuration. So I could do a -L now. And as you guys can see, I'm very popular because every time I'm doing something, I get a phone call or a text or something. -L, I have nothing. So that's great. The next thing I want to do is sometimes referred to as an incredibly dangerous command, but it's very effective. I would do a remove recursive force of everything in temp because I know /BD is bad, and I know that there were things running from temp itself that were actually a part of scripts like this Python itself and things like that. Well, you have to do the recursive to delete it if it thinks it's in use anyways. So I'm going to execute that. Now I've removed the files and such, and I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to leave it at that with what we do for the response stuff so I can hit check action really quickly. And then while this is checking, you'll see that these points start to get awarded. And so while this is checking, I want to take this time to ask if there's anybody that has any questions. As soon as this is done checking, I'm going to move into a quiz and summary.
Anyone has any questions?
That's just how good I was at explaining the product, I guess.
Right? No questions on this side as yet. On the Zoho side.
I did see someone unmute themselves. Peter, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Peter. Hi, how you doing?
I was just thinking that wouldn't it help also to prevent logging in directly as root over SSH?
What was the question? I broke up.
Right. No, I was just saying, wouldn't it be helpful also to prevent logging in directly as root over SSH?
Absolutely. If that's something you can do in your environment, for sure. Kind of the idea behind these exercises is to get our teams thinking. We can't simulate every single little thing in the range, but that's the type of conversation that happens naturally when you're doing these trainings. Is by seeing something like that, well, do we do that, or do we prevent that? It's a conversation you can start, and it's actually kind of helping you build your policy moving forward. A lot of good stuff that comes from this as well is you may say, wow, we don't actually log these alerts in our SIM, and these are huge value, especially if I can stitch together, like you saw from me, some environments, their SIM is tuned specifically to just give them the reports they need and maybe not all of the information that's necessary. So you saw how easily I was able to pivot from a narrowed focus around just how a correlation will fire to drop one section. I dropped the focus on the rule being failed login and scoped around the IP itself, and I immediately saw success. Well, that's huge. To be able to do that in a couple of seconds, that's the difference between a really bad breach or something that can be plugged really quickly. So you're absolutely right, though.
So, Peter, any more questions?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
One thing I realized as well, Mark, sorry
Uh-huh.
not to cut you, but one thing I realized as well is that really this is like a math problem. So there are many ways to solve the same problem. I'm also thinking, is there a way for us to one, instead of necessarily blocking that attack, for you to actually allow it and connect them to a honeypot so we can actually trace them back and find out exactly who they are? Wouldn't that be more of a combination of blue and red attack if that were to be done?
Yeah. I mean, so obviously in our cloud, we're doing some things out of the box, but the dedicated version allows you to do things way beyond just training. And as Steve was talking about, some of those customers that we have, our global ones, we're doing things like product efficacy testing. There's current state architecture, future state architecture, and then the top 10 attacks that hit their business vertical, and where do they stand in terms of security posture, and does it meet or exceed where they want to be now, and they build a plan forward. And a part of that, right, is testing new technology, and you could use the range for that as well. So a lot of things can be done. It just all comes down to, is it something we do once, or do we replicate it in a format to train continuously, right? And that essentially is how you would implement.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much.
Who knows the root? Well, so we definitely want to prevent SSH from the internet. I always like the best practice question gets the best practice answer, and who knows root? Well, the whole world knows it for all I care because it was compromised. So I'm going to submit those. And then the last but not least is a trainee's really quick view of how well they did in the session. So they get a session summary. And then I didn't do all the response steps, so that's partially why my score is not perfect. And then basically this goes to their manager. The executives have access to a dashboard that has all of the trainees, and from that view, we can export your training for the session, the 2-page PDF that would be generated with your information on it, and that can be submitted to IFC Squared and EC Council for continuing education credit towards any certifications that you have through either of those two organizations. So thank you very much for your time today. I know we're 2 minutes over. I apologize, but I do want to say thank you, and I will pass it back over to you guys.